Hello, everyone. This is Al-Fadi, and I want to welcome you back to this amazing video series that we're doing with Brother Mill. And we have been going through a number of standard Islamic narrative elements and showing that they are sketchy at best. That's why we call this series Holes in the Narrative, why the standard Islamic narrative is sketchy. Today, we're going to talk about a very interesting topic, actually, and that's the origin of Eid al-Fitr. Now, if you know anything about Eid al-Fitr, this is the breaking of the fast celebration that comes at the heels of Ramadan. Immediately after Ramadan finishes, the next day, usually there is 3 days of celebration to break the fast, and we call it Eid al-Fitr, Eid for celebration, al-Fitr meaning to breaking of the fast, technically speaking. So with that, of course, background, we want to introduce here our brother Mill, who is joining us remotely. Thank you so much, brother, as always, for taking the time to be here with us. Now, we're really interested, and you whet our appetite about this. No pun intended here. So what's the deal with Eid al-Fitr?
Well, welcome. Let me edit that bit out. It's great to be back to talk to you again. Eid al-Fitr is really important because Islam claims to be a monotheistic religion with monotheistic roots. And when you delve into the history of this feast, you discover that there's a pagan connection. And that's what I'm going to explore with you today.
Wonderful.
So, where did the Ramadan fast and Eid al-Fitr festival come from? One thing we can rule out straight away, it didn't come from Christianity or Judaism. So the answer is actually quite surprising. It lies way up north in Iran. I think we're seeing a theme. Whenever we delve into these things, we keep coming across a northern explanation, a northern origin to Islam.
Yeah, I would say this is the only connection to Abraham, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're talking about a festival that goes way back in time. That's 4,000 years old, and it comes from way up in Iran. And there's a surprising link that exists between the moon god Sen. So this time, I'm not referring to the standard Islamic narrative, but the moon god Sen, and Ramadan and Eid al-Fitr.
Now, is this moon god connected to Baal, by the way?
I haven't delved into that. I wouldn't be able to tell you offhand. I'd have to look into that, but I haven't really focused on that for this.
All right.
But it's interesting that the last Umayyad Caliph, Marwan II, 744-750, built his palace on the ruined site of the Temple of Sen in Iran. That's a very odd place to build his palace. Just, he could have built it anywhere, but he built it there. Here we see a direct link from an ancient cult to the moon god Sen and the Islamic practice of Ramadan and Eid al-Fitr. And I'm sure for many of you, this may seem really surprising that there could be this link, but there's very strong evidence, as I'm going to show you. So it's just a little bit of a background. The moon god Sen in the Mesopotamian religion was the father of the sun god Shamash and of Ishtar, otherwise known as Aphrodite, and with them formed an astral triad of deities. Now, astral means like planetary or to do with the sun or the moon or planets and so on. And it's interesting that St. John of Damascus links the black stone to Aphrodite, which is Ishtar. Okay, so that's just a side note. Now, originally the word Sen comes from Suen, which got contracted, and it designated the crescent moon, okay? Now, if we look at the map here, way down southern Iraq there's a place called Nippur. Each spring, Sen's worshippers reenacted his mythological visit to his father Enlil at Nippur, southern Iraq, with a ritual journey carrying with them the first dairy products of the year. And I'd just point out as well that the god Sen was also referred to as Nana as well. So that's an alternative for Sen. So we can see it's still a northern narrative. We're talking about Iran and we're talking about southern Iraq in relation to this. Okay. Now, from this source, which is up at the top, I won't read it. The Sabians are divided into two groups, the Mandaeans and the Haranians. Now, the Mandaeans are more polytheistic. The Haranians, while still being polytheistic, they had a pantheon. They emphasized the moon god Sen as like the father god in the pantheon. And it's like a first step towards monotheism, but not quite. So the Haranians were moon worshippers that worshipped the moon god Sen, or Nana, as I've mentioned, as their main deity, along with the other deities, and they considered their god greater than the others. Now, what is one of the phrases that Muslims typically say about Allah?
I mean, Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, for instance, one of it, Jalla
You would say,
Jalaluhu. Yeah.
well, the one that springs to mind for me is Allahu Akbar, which is
That's true.
Allah is the greater.
That's right.
Now, if you were to go back in time 4,000 years ago to Haran, and you were to ask them, who is the greater God, they would immediately say Sen. The god Sen is the greater God, because that's who they had at the top of their
And he's greater
pantheon.
than other gods, technically speaking. Not the greatest, but greater than the others. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So the greater than the others is how they would view it. So it's an interesting link, even just at that point of the discussion here. Now, what's also interesting is what has a 30-day fast got to do with the moon god Sen? So I found this little bit here. Dr. Bayard Dodge, a lovely name there, in The Sabians of Haran, explains that mythological origins of Haran's worship of the moon explain the disappearance of the moon after it joined with the star cluster Pleiades in the zodiac of Taurus. It happened during the third week of March. The people prayed to the moon, pleading for its return to the city of Haran, but the moon refused to return. This is believed to be the explanation for why they fasted during this month. The moon did not promise to return to Haran, but it did promise to return to Deir Kadi, a temple near one of the gates of the city of Haran. The worshippers of Sen, or Nana, went to Deir Kadi after this month to celebrate and to welcome the return of the moon. So this is 4,000 years ago. We got a 30-day fast. They are waiting for the return of the moon god Sen. And then once in the myths that the moon god returns, they have a celebration for that return. Mm-hmm. Any guesses what this festival was called 4,000 years ago?
Let me guess.
Have a guess.
al-Fitr?
Exactly. So that's what they called. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so.
Of course.
According to 10th century historian Ibn al-Nadim, the Haranians called the feast al-Fitr. The spelling is different because it was originally in Akkadian and then in Sumerian. I may have got which came first wrong there, but it was in both of those two languages. So it's the same name by which the feast of the Islamic Ramadan is called Feast of al-Fitr, or that should be the feast at the end of Ramadan. When Muslims celebrate Eid al-Fitr, the breaking of the fast, they say numerous takbirs, Allah is greater. This echoes the idea that the moon god Sen is greater than the other gods, at least in the earlier festival. Now, it was moved from the month of Rajab, which is the month around March, to Ramadan.
Wow. Hence, I mean, that's the 7th month of the Islamic calendar.
Yeah. Hence the reason the fast is called Ramadan and not Rajab. If they had retained its position in the calendar during the month of Rajab, it would have been really obvious that it's connected with the moon god Sen. Maybe, just maybe, the reason they moved it might be to avoid it being so obvious. We don't know. We don't know exactly why they moved it, but in any case, they moved it from spring to summer, and that is convenient because it hid that connection. Mm-hmm. Okay, and what we're missing in the explanation for all of this is how it went from being a practice up in Haran to something practiced in Arabia in pre-Islamic times, which Islam then just took over. So, that's the big nub of the question. And so I did some digging, and this is what I found out. So what's interesting is we do know how it actually became a practice in Arabia. And this is, as I say, fascinating. The last king of Babylon, Nabonidus, who reigned from 556 to 539 BC, attempted to elevate sin to a supreme position within the pantheon. Nabonidus went in self-imposed exile and started proselytizing at Tema in northern Arabia. His son, Belshazzar, became regent, and it was he who was given the writing upon the wall warning from God. Now, I know you spoke to Dr. Joel. Is it Dr. Richard Joel?
Joel Richardson, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Joel Richardson. Sorry, got it mixed up. I know he referred to Belshazzar, and I thought this bit here was a nice link with what he spoke about. One sanctuary that has been found dedicated to the god Sen was found at Sumatar, Harabesi, close to Edessa and Haran, and is dated to the 3rd century AD. So it is fair to suppose that the cult survived into Islamic times. We're not talking about a huge time before. It didn't just end in the 6th century BC, but it carried on. We can definitely say it carried on into the 3rd century AD and probably carried on till the 7th century and then was just taken over. This cult was spread right through many parts of Arabia, and those Arabs who were pagan practiced this cult into the 7th and 8th century. And so therefore, when Islam began, this got incorporated into their religion. That's my take on it. Now, there's a very interesting thing about Belshazzar's feast, which actually, as I'm going to argue, was the feast of al-Fitr. That's a bit of a bombshell. Daniel 5:1 says that King Belshazzar gave a great banquet for 1,000 of his nobles and drank wine with them. The most important festival in the Haran calendar was the Feast of al-Fitr. This is the festival that God intervenes and puts the writing on the wall, warning Belshazzar that his kingdom was soon to be ended. So at the end of that chapter, it says that very night, Belshazzar, the king of the Babylonians, was slain, and Darius the Mede took over the kingdom at the age of 62. That's an amazing detail. God passes judgment not just on Belshazzar, but on this feast of al-Fitr and of all of this practice, the Ramadan, which was Rajab at that time, and all of the work that his father did in proselytizing even into Arabia, all of that fell under God's judgment, and this is recorded in the Bible. So that's incredible. And what a festival for Islam to inherit. Why did they pick a festival that the Bible condemns in the clearest terms? Because it was a pagan festival. Instead of worshipping the God of the Jews, which is Yahweh, these pagans were worshipping Sen, the god, the moon god Sen and the others. And as punishment, God basically took away the kingdom of the Babylonians. And just another little detail in the Bible, it says that they used wine cups that were found in Jerusalem. They took the wine cups from the Jews and used it as part of this pagan festival. And that was the trigger for God intervening and saying, no, you are taking sacred objects and using them for a pagan festival. This is not acceptable. And so they were condemned for that. Yep. This gets better and better, because in 1956, an archaeologist by the name of Dr. D.S. Rice discovered 4 stelae, which are rocks with inscriptions on them, down in the foundation of none other than a mosque in Haran, as I said, in 1956. And this was on the site of an old temple dedicated to the moon god Sen. And they contain inscriptions on behalf of Nabonidus and his mother, bragging about his exploits to spread this cult of Sen far and wide, particularly in Arabia. So this is amazing that they found this. And I love the fact that it was found in the foundation of a mosque of all places. So here are some of the translations from that. Down at the bottom here is one of the stele has a depiction of Nabonidus. And in the next one here, we have another inscription. And this one, it's an inscription from Nabonidus. And he basically talks about his work spreading the cult of Sen in various places, including places way down in Iraq and into Arabia. And here's another one here. You can see there's a reference to Tema in Arabia there and a few other places as well. So I found this about a year ago, and I was blown away by this. So we have a pagan cult to the moon god Sen. We have a condemnation of it by God recorded in the Bible. We have proof that this Babylonian king propagated it in Arabia, and we know that Islam took up this festival and called it by exactly the same name, al-Fitr, as part of a supposedly monotheistic religion of Islam. So
wonderful. So
my verdict is both Ramadan and Eid al-Fitr are both directly inherited from a pagan polytheistic cult dedicated to the moon god Sen. I'll hand it back to you.
Wonderful, brother. Thank you so much for sharing this, of course. And now we're looking forward really to our next episode. This time we're going to talk about art revealing Muhammad, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to look at how Muhammad is depicted in art over the centuries. Of course, many Muslims are unaware that Muslims had been drawn Muhammad for centuries. So that'll be our topic during the next video.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, brother. Thank you, everyone, for following along, and hope to see you again next time. God bless. Take care. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, CIRA International, and click on the bell so that you receive notifications whenever we publish a new video or go live. I would also like to appeal to you to consider becoming a Patreon patron by clicking the link right below. By doing so, you can give towards the production of these videos. There are also other options for you where you can give to our channel. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.